Hello YouTube divers, this is WaterDive 122 and I want to welcome you all to another special edition episode of Magic Metal Mondays. And I say special edition because, for one thing, we're getting back to those album reviews, because a lot of you folks liked my Halloween self-titled album review that I did a couple of weeks ago. So I decided to make another one of that until I can figure out another band to rank, until I can figure out another band's discography that I can rank. So in the meantime, we'll just be doing these album reviews. But we are going to be, and when I say this is a special edition episode, because we're going back to Yes, my second favorite band of all time. And we are going to be talking about one of their albums today. Now, you will definitely hear me do a lot of Yes album reviews on this point of Magic Metal Mondays, because you know Yes has a ton of great albums, if you remember from a lot of videos where I talked about Yes, and of course my Yes album rankings that I did on episode 2. You can go check that out. But today we are going to give an in-depth review-ish about one of their albums. And I'm actually wearing the shirt of the album we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Relayer. Alright, so Relayer, this is an interesting choice. I'm pretty sure a lot of you thought I was going to talk about Tales from Topographic Oceans. Not today, but that will be in a future video. That's for sure. That is for sure. I'm going to make a review on Tales from Topographic Oceans. Just know that. But for now, I am going to do Relayer. Now, Relayer, in my opinion, is a very, very good album. Actually, no, scratch that. It's an amazing album. It's a top 5 album for me, top 3 album for me. If you remember from my Yes album ranking, I had this at number 3 on my list, behind Going for the One, and of course, Tales from Topographic Oceans. And you know, in my opinion, Relayer and Going for the One is very close together. Like, they could be interchangeable any given day. But as of right now, it's still number 3 on my list. But who knows? It might be number 2. I mean, it's that good. But we're gonna get to that in the review. So there's only 3 tracks on here, but all of them, one of them's all over 20 minutes long, and the other 2 are over 9 minutes long. So that is a pretty long amount of music there. But in my opinion, not a single second is wasted, and we're gonna get to that in the review. So this album came out in 1974, a year after Tales from Topographic Oceans came out, and in my opinion, if you're going to follow up arguably a masterpiece that is Tales, kind of this strange setting where you would have, like, lots of epics, then how are you going to follow it up? And in my opinion, Relayer is the perfect follow-up to an album like Tales from Topographic Oceans. There's no denying that Relayer definitely has some strong moments, and it's heavily loved within the Yes community. And I can definitely see why a lot of Yes fans would love this album. And, you know, as a Yes fan myself, I also love this album. It definitely has a lot of memories between, from Tales from Topographic Oceans, which came before this record. And there are even some moments that you would hear on, like, Going for the One, which came out after this record. And even moments from Close to the Edge, which came out 2 years before this one. But in my opinion, Relayer has those elements that mix together in a perfect harmony. A perfect harmony. And in my opinion, this basically feels like a band that is still going strong within their catalog. And even though Rick Wakeman is not present on this record, this is the only album to feature keyboardist Patrick Moraz. It still feels like Rick Wakeman is there, because, in my opinion, Patrick Moraz is just as freaking good as Rick Wakeman. If not, maybe even a little better, but Who knows? So now, let's take a look at the tracks, shall we? So the opening track, and the only track that is on side 1, is the Gates of Delirium. And this is the grand 21-minute epic that starts off this album with an absolute banger. It's about the novel War and Peace. So if you like that type of talks about that type of stuff, like there's a huge section with the battle, and then soon. That is so freaking heavy hitting every time I hear soon. But I'm gonna get back to that later. So the Gates of Delirium basically opens up with this very proggy type of synthesizer, like Telecaster guitar stuff. Had a lot of cool synthesizer licks there from Patrick Moraz, a lot of guitar licks by Steve Howe, and of course very memorable stuff like on his volume pedal, and of course steel guitar, which he played on soon, and that whole battle section where the band is just jamming. You know, Chris Squire on bass, Steve Howe on guitar, Patrick Moraz on keyboards, Alan White on drums, and of course John Anderson with like tambourine and maybe even rhythm guitar. Yeah, those guys just have a blast when they're jamming out these long instrumentals. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I love Yes, is because they come up with some of the most complicated instrumental parts ever. It's just crazy how great their musicianship is, especially on their mid-70s records, especially on their 70s records. It's just so freaking good. But the first two parts of Gates of Delirium are just meaty, so heavy. Like, you know, kind of like what Tales from Topographic Oceans had to offer. It's just hits you like a freaking freight train, and you're left in awe. And then you get to Soon, the final slow section of the Gates of Delirium, with John Anderson on vocals and Steve Howe on steel guitar. This is one of my favorite ballads ever. It's I never get tired of that section, and every time I hear it, it gives me goosebumps on my skin every single time, and I can't help but adore that part of Gates of Delirium. It's definitely my favorite part of the song, and I think a lot of Yes fans would agree with me on that. And now when we look at side 2, we got 2 songs on side 2, Sound Chaser and To Be Over. So what Sound Chaser is, it's kind of like this chaotic movement that we saw in the first 2 parts of Gates of Delirium. Like these 2 songs, Sound Chaser and To Be Over, kind of reorchestrate what the Gates of Delirium had. Like with Sound Chaser being that chaotic, heavy moments, like super freight train like elements that we would get that we had like on the first 2 parts of Gates of Delirium. It's just so amazing. It is probably my least favorite track on the album, but there is not a bad song on Relayer, just to get that out of the way. But this song definitely gives me goosebumps for how heavy some of the vocal parts from John Anderson is, like that cha 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 cha, that part. What in the world, man? And I don't mean that as a complaint. That is absolutely an amazing part. I mean, who knew that Yes could be so good at these chaotic moments? Because, you know, they're used to, like, doing more lighthearted, light-toned, progressive epics, like we saw in Tales from Topographic Oceans or Close to the Edge, for example. And, of course, on Gates of Delirium. But here, they just do full-on chaos. And it, for some reason, I just love that side of Yes. I mean, that whole part on Sound Chaser near the end where they're chanting that cha-cha-cha. Definitely my favorite part of the song. And it's just so heavy hitting. I love Sound Chaser. And then the album closes off with a beautiful, and I mean beautiful ballad that is To Be Over. And when I was talking about Sound Chaser, I said that these two tracks remind me of parts from Gates of Delirium. Sound Chaser being the first two, and To Be Over being the last part. To Be Over, in my opinion, kind of reorchestrates that ballad type of atmosphere that the third part of Gates of Delirium had, for example. Like those harmonies with Anderson, Squire, and Howe are just so heavy hitting. Like that soft section in the first half of the song. And I love the harmonies when they say, balance the thoughts that release within you. Oh. It tugs on my heartstrings every time I hear that line. And the way that they sing it is just so freaking killer. And then of course, right after that is Steve Howe's amazing guitar work. Like he does slide guitar on a few parts, and then he just goes into that crazy Steve Howe like guitar solo that he's well known for. And then the song does tend to speed up a little bit, but it does slow down near the end. But overall, To Be Over is such an amazing song, and I'm very happy that I got to re-listen to it, because it's currently one of my favorite Yes songs of all time. So there you go, and it's highly underrated too. Please go listen to Be Over if you haven't already. It is fantastic. I love that song. So, in conclusion here, Relayer, without a solid doubt, is a solid 10 out of 10 album. There is not a bad song on this record. All three songs deliver full blast. John Anderson's voice sounds just as good as the previous album. Steve Howe's guitar work is... it just blows your mind, like on Tales from Topographic Oceans. Chris Squire has an amazing bass work, and he also has his fair share of harmonies and stuff in here. Patrick Moraz, I wish that he did more albums with Yes, because this was a solid marking for him, and I just love Patrick Moraz's keyboard work. And of course, Alan White on the drums. He does great holding down the fort. And of course, John Anderson from time to time doing percussion sets and stuff like that. It's just killer. And whenever I do get back to Yes, Relayer is one of my go-to albums. I absolutely love Relayer. It's not my favorite Yes album, but oh my god, it is a fantastic record. I absolutely adore this record. I can't say it enough. I love this record. So yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 for Relayer from 1974 by Yes. So with that said, that concludes this edition of Magic Metal Mondays. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.